The sky has always been our greatest dream and our most impossible challenge.
We've built wings, rotors, and engines, but the air still resists our imagination.
For more than a century, flight has meant one thing: spin or lift. Propellers cut through air in circles, jet turbines roar in spirals, and every flying machine dances to the rhythm of rotation.
But what if the next revolution in flight didn't spin at all? What if the future of aviation didn't twist, whirl, or rotate like anything we've ever seen?
This is the story of the Cyclocopter, the aircraft that defies the very principles we thought flight depended on. A design so strange, it looks more like a machine from science fiction than from any hangar on Earth.
It's not a drone. It's not a helicopter. It's not even an airplane in the traditional sense.
It's something completely new, a flying craft powered by cycloidal rotors, blades that move in a perfect sideways loop, slicing through air with mathematical precision.
To understand why this idea is so radical, we have to step back in time.
Back to the earliest dreamers of flight, when the Wright Brothers proved air could be tamed with wings. Since then, every aircraft, no matter how advanced, has relied on either spinning propellers or fixed wings.
We made them faster. We made them stealthier. We made them autonomous.
But the basic principle of thrust remained unchanged: air pushed backward, craft pushed forward. The Cyclocopter throws that entire rulebook out the window. Instead of pushing air backward, it sweeps air downward and sideways with rotating blades arranged in a cylinder, like a horizontal Ferris wheel made of airfoils. Each blade constantly changes its pitch angle during rotation, allowing the Cyclocopter to redirect thrust instantly in any direction. That means it can hover, fly forward, backward, sideways, spin on its axis, and even hold position in a windstorm, all without tilting like a helicopter.
The first time engineers saw it fly, they didn't believe their eyes.
It moved like it was rewriting physics in real time.
Because in a way, it was. The air around it didn't swirl into the classic downward vortex of a helicopter.
Instead, it shimmered, smoothly disturbed, as if the Cyclocopter was cutting through the atmosphere with surgical control. Researchers from the University of Maryland, and later teams in South Korea and Japan, became obsessed with this design. They built miniature prototypes, each one more stable and more agile than the last.
At first, people laughed. The design looked ridiculous: a boxy frame with two sideways spinning rotors and no visible wings. But when it hovered, completely stable, even under gusty air currents, laughter turned into silence. Because something extraordinary was happening. The machine could change direction instantly without banking or leaning.
It was pure thrust vectoring, total control over lift and movement. Imagine a drone that doesn't tilt forward to move ahead, it simply reorients its airflow and glides straight, like magic.
Now imagine scaling that up to a human-sized aircraft.
That's the dream driving the Cyclocopter revolution.
Engineers believe it could one day replace helicopters in roles where precision and safety matter most. Rescue operations in tight urban spaces. Delivery drones that can land on a moving platform. Even personal air taxis that can take off and land vertically without the roar of spinning blades. Because cycloidal rotors can operate quietly and efficiently. They generate lift smoothly, not in the choppy pulses of a propeller's beat. And the most amazing part, their thrust direction can change instantly. That means you could stop midair, pivot, and accelerate in another direction in a fraction of a second. Traditional aircraft take seconds to maneuver. A Cyclocopter does it in milliseconds. It's like the difference between turning a car and teleporting it sideways. That control opens doors we've only dreamed of. Imagine drones flying through disaster zones, slipping between obstacles with precision. Imagine air taxis navigating skyscraper canyons without turbulence. Imagine military scouts hovering silently behind walls or moving vehicles. This is not science fiction anymore, it's happening in research labs today. But the idea didn't come easily. Cycloidal propulsion was first imagined over a century ago, around the 1920s. Back then, it was called a cyclogyro. Inventors tried to make it work with gears and levers, but technology wasn't ready. Materials were heavy, control systems were crude, and the math was too complex. So the idea was buried in old patents and forgotten for decades.
Then came the drone age, small electric motors, lightweight composites, and digital stabilization. Suddenly, the impossible became practical. Researchers revisited the concept and realized that with modern computers, they could model and control the airflow precisely enough to make it stable.
And when they did, it worked.
Not just as a curiosity, but as a controllable, efficient flying system. In 2019, a small cyclocopter prototype stunned onlookers by hovering indoors without drifting. In 2021, a team demonstrated forward flight and obstacle avoidance. By 2023, the design reached a new milestone: hybrid models that combine cycloidal rotors with small wings for added range. Every test pushed it closer to reality. And then the military started paying attention. Because a vehicle that can hover silently, move laterally, and maneuver precisely without exposing large propeller discs could be invaluable. Cyclocopters could slip through urban environments, land in tight alleys, or take off from the deck of a ship without turbulence interference. They could also be safer. Since their rotors are enclosed, there's less risk of blade contact. For logistics, surveillance, and emergency response, the potential is enormous. But here's where things get really interesting.
The physics of cycloidal flight aren't just unusual, they might hold clues to a new class of aerodynamics. Some researchers believe cyclorotors can manipulate airflow so efficiently they could outperform conventional propellers at small scales. That means more thrust per watt, longer flight times, and quieter operation, the holy grail of electric flight. But scaling it up is the real challenge.
The dynamics of air change dramatically when you go from a 20-centimeter rotor to a 2-meter one.
What works perfectly for a drone can become unstable for a passenger craft.
Still, the dream persists.
Because every major breakthrough starts as an impossible dream. Some say the cyclocopter could redefine urban mobility entirely. Others think it's just a fascinating experiment that will never leave the lab. But one thing is certain: we've never seen flight behave like this before. The way it hovers, the way it turns, it almost looks alive. Some pilots who witnessed early demonstrations compared it to watching a hummingbird. Small, agile, and unpredictable, yet graceful and deliberate. It's like the machine has its own mind. The cyclocopter doesn't spin like anything we've seen, and maybe that's the point.
For over 100 years, aviation has revolved literally around rotation.
But this is motion reimagined. Not spinning, not flapping, not thrusting, but dancing through air with mathematical choreography.
When you see it, you realize flight was never limited by wings, only by imagination.
And that imagination is finally taking shape.
As the first cyclocopters lift off around the world, engineers are beginning to glimpse what the future might feel like. A future where the sky is filled with machines that hover like thoughts, glide like whispers, and move in ways nature never intended. A future that's quiet, efficient, and completely unrecognizable from what came before.
And yet, somehow, familiar.
Because deep down, we've always dreamed of flying, just not like this. Not with the spin of a propeller, but with the elegance of pure control. And that's what the cyclocopter promises.
A new way to fly. A new way to imagine motion itself.